Oh, hello. Thanks so much for volunteering for the Bob. We're making this video so that we can make this experience as fun as possible for you doing Bob. Okay, for those of you who don't know what Bob is Battle of the Books, and it happens every February in Oregon. And we at Bridger prepare the kids from now, September, through February for that process. And basically from September to December, we get the kids into small groups and they're all reading the same book, and we try to get them to read 4 books. Our primary focus is to get kids to encourage the love of reading. That's the whole purpose. And ultimately we want to support all of our readers. Inspiring all of our students to read at Bridger is the goal with Battle of the Books. And so some of our students might read 2 and some of our students would read 10. And that's okay. And eventually they can be on the same team. But we're just trying to encourage all the students wherever they're at.
Our expectation here at Bridger is that every student grades 3 through 5 participates in Bob, whether or not they choose to compete on a team in February. We found that simply being a part of this collaborative process of engaging with these wonderful books and getting to work with adults has been really positive. So rather than deciding teams now, rather than making up their mind about whether they'd like to battle in February, we want all kids to participate, and they can decide later in the year if they'd like to move forward.
What does a volunteer do?
Typically when you come in and visit as a Bob volunteer, you'll be coming in once every 2 weeks, and when you come to visit it will be for an hour and a half total, spending 45 minutes with each of 2 classes. Now the kids will be reading a new book every month, with 4 books being spread out among the class at a time. When you come in, the kids will be organized into small groups, and in each of those small groups, all of the kids will be reading the same book.
First, of course, you'll want to learn the names of the students, get to know them a little bit. You may be starting a new book with the students, or you may catch them in the middle of the book. It just depends. So you're going to have to decide, what the best approach is. If you're starting a new book, you could read the first chapter. You can do the read aloud as a round robin, or give students the option. So they could to either read a paragraph, a page, or pass. If you're pressed for time, you may want to read the chapter out loud, or depending on the interest, sometimes they just want to listen. So you decide what the best approach is. But reading that first chapter really helps the students to get into the book. And then of course you want to make sure you have time to discuss what you just read and ask the students questions such as, what do they like so far about the book? Describe the setting, something about the plot, talk about the characters, which characters do they identify with?
Please remember that the volunteer does not need to have read the book. Certainly it helps because you might be able to be more specific in your engagement and in your questions that you're asking them, but it is definitely not required.
During your meeting, you can also check in with the students about their reading habits. Perhaps ask them, when do they read? Where do they read in their house? Do they read with their families? What kind of books do they like to read in general? So part of Bob is really getting to know the students and creating a relationship with them around reading. And you might ask them how much screen time they have. What are they doing? How much TV do they watch? I have those kinds of conversations with students. We want all the students to practice the book titles and authors. And so we will have index cards with the titles and authors, and you can play different kinds of games with those memory type games and get them excited. Towards the end of your visit, you'll want to set up time for goal setting. Find out how many pages they think they should be reading every day and what's doable for them. Maybe how many pages they plan to read before the next time you see them. Maybe it's a couple of chapters. So you want to remind the students that they only have 1 month to read the book. Now it is possible for these kids to get books on their own, to go to the public library or so on, but in terms of the Bridger books, they have 1 month to read the books, and so we want to really remind them of that timeline and encourage them. Also, if you want to talk to them about the Bob and just tell them how exciting it is to participate in the Bob if they've read the books, and that they can't they can participate, but they can't do as much if they haven't read as much. So we really are trying to help them get ready so they can be on teams in January.
Ultimately, you decide how to spend your 45 minutes. We've given you some suggestions here, but you are going to be the leader of this group, so do what works for you, do what works for your kids. You might find finding a quiet spot will not only help create kind of an intimacy among your group, but also help manage certain behavioral challenges. So find another quiet spot in the school. A lot of times we work in the hallway because many of the common areas will be occupied at this time. But anywhere that you find, certainly if the weather's nice outside, you can go out in the water garden, wherever you see fit. No, certainly with any volunteers in the classroom, some of you may have more experience working with kids, others of you this might be the first time coming into a class. So just know that if you have any questions, by this point most teachers are pretty well versed in Bob and can offer you help. Certainly there are the Bob parent leads for each classroom that you could ask if you have any questions. And should behavioral issues arise, just know that there are certain strategies that you can use, but if anything becomes too difficult for you to manage, that is what the teacher is there for. Behavioral issues do arise sometimes. Certainly if a book isn't the kid's first choice or they don't respond to the book at first, one of the first strategies that I would use is to try to pull them in. So if you are excited about the book, hopefully your group will get excited about the book, and when kids are engaged, they will certainly behave better. If that fails, we do have a certain expectation at Bridger that even if a student isn't interested, that they be respectful. And so if there are any challenges with being disrespected, or if kids are distracted or getting too excited or hyper, we ask that you please give them first a friendly warning, remind them why you're here, how we have a short time window to do this, and then you can certainly give them a timeout, whether it's with a buddy classroom, send them to the teachers group, or just talk to the classroom teacher that you're volunteering with to see if they have any systems in place that they would prefer that you use. Again, we just want to thank you for being a Bob volunteer, for offering your time to come into our building and work with our students. This has been a really wonderful experience for our kids over the past few years, and we're sure that this year will be no different. The kids are excited about these books, they're excited to be with you, and just getting that small group attention really does wonders for these students in developing a positive relationship with reading. So just know that no matter what happens, we are so grateful that you're here, and it's going to be a fun experience. We hope you enjoy it. So thank you.